Hey guys, this has been a crazy couple of days for Heather and I. Sorry, I almost said weeks. Feels like weeks. It's been a crazy couple of days for Heather and I, just bringing Paisley into the world, and we're so excited for when you guys get to meet her. For now, you'll probably have to see her over Zoom or videos or whatever it may be. But in this week to come, we're about to lead up to Easter, and for a lot of you guys, the past couple of years actually, a lot of people in 1112 have been on mission trips, and we go to these countries which celebrate this Holy Week, where a lot of people get this vacation, but the vacation is pointed to them reflecting on what God did for them, on what Jesus did on the cross. And what that came from is it started with a Jewish tradition called Passover, and this is where we get Holy Week from. It's an 8-day festival in which they would celebrate God leading them out of Egypt, where he would deliver them from the hand of Pharaoh. And it was when the angel of death passed over their houses. That's why they call it the Passover. And Jesus, at the Passover meal with his disciples in the upper room, kind of brought about this new Passover meal that a lot of us kind of look forward to in this Easter process, or this week where we remember God's goodness in the moment of Easter. And this meal that the Jewish Passover festival had a lot of cool imagery. It was things that they would do that would constantly remind them of God's goodness. They would even have food that would remind them of slavery. It would be like bitter food, so they would remember, okay, this is bitter just like slavery. So they'd remember how good God's grace is. They would have things that would symbolize freedom and how God has brought them freedom. And so this whole meal was, they would tell stories, they would gather in community, they'd be together. But the whole point of this whole Passover festival was, we want to take a moment and we want to pause and we want to remember how good God is to us. And we want to teach the next generation how good God has been to us as a people, how much God loves us and cares for us. And so it was like this telling and this training for people to know God's goodness. And now, this is such a weird time. And I know maybe not a lot of you might not reflect on Easter week even before. It just seems like a week of vacation. But for some of you who you might be leading up to this time of Easter, but now you're in a time of quarantine, we want to encourage you not to forget that God has been good in your life. And I challenge you this week to just Google the Jewish festival of Passover and the traditions that happen at it, and what the dinner encapsulated and the things that they did, because you guys will see that everything they did was to point back to how good is God. But what's funny is they would end their meal hoping every year that the Messiah would come. And yet that's what separates Jews from Christians, is we know the Messiah was come and they were hoping for him to come. And so as you guys go about this week, would you put yourself in a position where you can look up and you can ask yourself, how am I remembering God's goodness in my life? And especially now that Heather and I just brought a baby into this world, I'm now looking at this from the lens of, these people constantly made it a point to teach their families, their sons and daughters, the next generation, God's faithfulness and goodness in their life. And so now I'm reflecting, how can I start showing others around me the goodness of God in my life? So during this Holy Week, guys, don't just let it be waste. Don't let it be another week in quarantine. Take some time and reflect on how God has been good in your life.